Hello. Today we're going to have a little go at painting this toy, which is here. Okay, little polar bear. Now, the materials you'll need are a couple of brushes. Okay, watercolor brushes. Maybe to have one. A block of paper, watercolor paper, water in a container. A rag of maybe a cotton rag, something like that, and some paints. This is a sort of set of watercolor paints. If you don't have watercolor paints, you can grind up some Nescafe or use some tea or whatever you have, really. So let's get started. So first of all, let's just have a look at our model here. Okay, I'm going to be putting it down on the table in front of me, but put it quite close to you so you can have a look at all the shadows on it. We're going to paint this little bear, and first of all, what we're going to do, I think, is just mark out roughly where the bear is going to be. Okay, so just take some time setting it up nicely. I think that will do. There's not great light on my bear, so I might just stick some light on. Let's have a look. There's some better light. Okay. Okay, can you all hear me? Now, this is just practice. So in the real event, hopefully you can ask questions and I can help you with any problems you might have. So here's our bear. Let's have a look. So my bear kind of starts here, and it kind of goes down like that. And it's got a big kind of foot at the back and a big paw coming straight down. Okay, now this is going to be roughly, doesn't need to be too perfect. It's practice after all, so maybe like that. And then we can refine it a bit as we go along. It's just a general idea of where the bits go. Okay. So does that look fairly reasonable? Yeah. Okay. And then it's got a shadow coming sort of forwards that way. So we could maybe stick that in as well. So there's my bear. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to separate out my bear from my not bear. So my not bear is a background. Now I've got a kind of a bit of chipboard as a background. So I think I'm just going to put that in straight away. And let's have a go. So bear, not bear. Right, here we go, not bear. So anything that's not the bear is going out the back like that. Now, when you're at home, obviously you can, move your bear around as you wish, get up, put some music on, enjoy yourself, chill out, and hopefully learn how to, or get a bit more confident painting watercolors. Now, it's all about confidence. Now, confidence doesn't mean being good at something. It just means having a go or being confident to have a go. And this is exactly what I'm doing here. So here's the front paw. Okay, so as we said, we're painting the background, anything that's not the bear itself. Okay, ear there, which is the bear, and then its snout. All right. I'm not sure when the live event actually happens, whether, obviously I wouldn't be painting at the time, but the idea is for you to ask me questions, and since I'm not painting and talking, I can obviously help you with them. That's the idea anyway. So now what I want to do now is see what parts of the bear are in shadow. Okay, so we're going to have the light parts of the bear and then the darker parts of the bear. So we're going to imagine this bear is like a cube. It's a 3D object. So I think we're going to use a bit of another color. Maybe I can use a bit of blue, light blue. Polar bears, it's got that kind of cool sort of feel to it if I use a blue. So here we go. I'm going to look at this back leg. I notice it's kind of in the shade. So there we go. And then this part of the belly is also in the shade. So that kind of goes down there, but his rump is not. So I'm trying to separate out the bear into kind of blocks, if I can, to give it a kind of 3D sort of idea. So there we go. And then the back paw is also a bit darker down there. And then the side of its face is also a bit darker. So let's do that. Here we go. Just roughly, okay. We're not looking to put any detail at all at this stage. Just trying to give a nice idea of a bear rather than a description, you know, just a generic polar bear. Okay, so that's kind of beginning to have a bit of form. If you want to make those shadows a bit darker, we can add the background color, which, if you're interested, was raw umber, and a bit of the blue again, which, if you're interested, was I think it was a Prussian blue, so a cool blue. And you can add them together, and that gives the pending a kind of nice greeny color. And let's use that just to accentuate these shadows a bit more, like that. So it's all observation. You're trying to kind of forget that you're painting a bear, because the danger is if you're, you know, thinking about, oh, does it look like a bear? Doesn't it look like a bear? You're going to end up painting sort of your idea of a bear, which could be quite good, but it could be just a bit of a generic bear, a bit of a kind of boring, not quite Paddington bear, not quite anything bear. And here, what we're trying to do is paint the bear that's in front of us. Yeah. And then the more we look at it, the more we can actually observe things that we hadn't seen. not that we're sort of learning about necessarily the bear's anatomy, but we're just learning to observe what's in front of us a bit better. And that's the secret of sort of observational painting is obviously observing. Makes sense? And we're learning to separate out forms into different values. So, for example, when I talk about values, I talk about how dark and light they are. So that's what we're trying to do is separate out something which is like medium grey from something which is slightly lighter grey, from something which is slightly darker grey. And if we're able to do that, gradually we'll be able to build up some kind of form. Yeah, which is the idea. So hopefully you can see that this bear is kind of taking shape gradually. Again, as I said, it's not the kind of thing where you'd be able to tell what kind of bear it is, but you know, it's enough to give the idea that there's some kind of bulk there. I think we need to go back to the background a bit because it's getting a bit light. So throughout this process, we'll be going forward and backwards. Forward to the figure, backwards to the background. And that will kind of put us in reasonable stead for this. And don't worry if your colours are sort of running into each other. That is what watercolour paint does. Okay, so there's no way of stopping that. And you don't really want to stop it because it's not sort of acrylic paint or oil paint where maybe you're scared of smudging it. The beauty of watercolor paint is it's got a mind of its own. It runs into each other, it pulls, it creates these wonderful patterns. And so, you know, you don't want to stop that happening. Obviously, it's nice to be able to control it as much as you can, but it's still nice to see all these. Can you see all these things happening on, you know, on the paper? Not things I've controlled. I mean, I do have some control over it, but you know, it has got its own mind, watercolor paper. Now, I'm kind of liking how that's looking on the screen. It's kind of got the idea. I think I might now play with the color of the bear itself. I mean, the one I'm painting is a kind of plasticky. Well, it's not plasticky, it's actually plastic. So I might put a bit of this yellow, which is called, gosh, I've forgotten. Naples yellow, I think it's called. It's kind of chalky yellow. It's not a very pure yellow, but just to work into these white areas, because otherwise I'd have to leave them. So I kind of want to work into them a bit. And by doing that, there you go, it will mean that I can leave some lighter areas as well. Like, for example, on the nose, that'd be quite good to leave that. Maybe that ear as well. All that can kind of, it is very yellow, isn't it? That's kind of, well, never mind. But as you can see down here, maybe I could leave this kind of area at the front, which is catching quite, from where I can see it, it's catching quite a lot of light. So I might just leave that area like that. And then here, I think probably I can paint in the whole lot. Apart from maybe that toe, which is kind of catching the light quite a lot. So we've turned it into a sort of more of a yellowy kind of bear. Not because polar bears are yellow, but my plastic toy, which, you know, is over 50 years old, let's face it, is kind of yellow. So I kind of want to give it a bit of that. But we've got some nice white bits there as well. Now, I don't think our polar bear's really standing out very much yet. So I think the way we can do that is by darkening the background. So let's do that. So we've got our brown, which is called raw umber. I could just grab more from the paint pan, so that will make it a darker color. Or I could just add a bit of a darker color to it, which I might do. I think let's add a bit of burnt sienna, which is slightly darker, slightly redder. Let's try that. And maybe it's going to be too much, but anyway, we shall see. What happens with watercolors is that they can seem very dark when you put them on, and then when they dry, they seem a bit less dark. And that's also because often you're putting other colors which are darker next to them, and so they'll appear lighter. Okay. So how are you all doing at home? Enjoying it? I hope so. I'm enjoying this. It's a very novel idea for me. And, you know, in the world after post-coronavirus, it may be one of the few openings for painters. So I'm better get used to it, really. And of course, you know, as time progresses, I'll get better at the filming and the lighting and get a decent camera and better computer, etc., etc. But it's very fun. I mean, particularly all the YouTube stuff, the fact that you have to, you know, you dilly-dally, you just got to press play and then you're live. You know, amazing. Imagine thinking about 20 years ago, you'd be live on a sort of with a potential reach of millions or billions. Even though my record at the moment for a YouTube video, I think, is 84 still. All right. Now, once I've got, how's it looking? That's kind of, I'm actually looking at this on the screen, on my computer screen, rather than in real life, just to see what you're seeing. And I'm kind of liking this, this background I'm putting on. It's just kind of separating out the form nicely. But I've got to be careful though, because for example here, I want to keep that back foot sort of separate from the background. So I've just got to be careful as I go along that I'm not putting any bits that I don't want to cover. You know, at some stage I've got to try and separate out background from figure. That's what I'm doing now. Maybe at the front here, should I put in a bit of another red? Should I put a bit of cadmium red instead of that other reddish color? So that, just see what happens. Again, go past that pore there, and then define that face a bit, give it a kind of bear-like snout. Paw. And go round at the end there. There we go. Oh, my arm's getting a bit tired. I'm not used to sitting down and painting. If you're standing up, it's kind of easier movements, really, but I couldn't get the camera working properly like that. So this is the way we're doing it. Good. Okay, so I'm quite happy with that, just as it is. It's kind of got that bear-like quality, kind of you can see where it's moving. It's not very detailed, but that's okay. It's got a kind of shadow, which I like. So maybe at this stage, I'm going to go in with a smaller brush and do a bit of kind of hatching with it, with this blue. Again, remember using this cool blue. Maybe I'll just use it as it is. Yeah, and or maybe just a touch of that umber, so making it green. Okay, so with this, I'm just going to try and give a bit more shape, as if I was drawing a bit. So here we've got some sort of trying to differentiate the sort of different bit of hair, maybe different muscles and little shadows that might kind of give this idea of bear fur. Maybe a bit of, try and give it this kind of accentuated belly. Maybe it's my bear's maybe carrying a little baby, so maybe pregnant. Not going to give it any kind of toes or claws because I can't actually see any for a start, and I think that might be a bit much, really. But just things that will point to the kind of the shape. And you'll notice that because the background's kind of wet, it is kind of merging a bit into the background, which is quite nice. Should I give it a bit of an ear? Why not? I'll give it a shadow behind the ear. Yeah, kind of thing. And then over here, I'll try and to give it that kind of sort of quite bulky head that bears have. And okay, just a bit of an eye. Goodness me, I always get in the wrong place anyway. Is that where the eye should be? Yeah, I think that'll do. Okay, so notice that the paint like that is kind of pools. I don't know if you can see it. Now you've got a choice here of either letting it pool or letting it run down, or if you don't want it to, take your brush, just dry it a bit, and then just scoop the paint up again. Can you see that? Okay, so where was I? Giving a bit of volume. You can use the same color just to give a bit of a volume in the shadows as well of the bear. Particularly this one at the back's got quite a nice shadow. Oops, sorry. All right. Okay. This is all kind of fading away a bit. It's all a bit, maybe, okay, maybe just under there. Give that a nice shadow of the head. Yeah. Yeah, maybe a bit more around the back here, giving it a bit more of a, because sometimes what happens is that the figure itself is darker than the background. Another time it's the other way around. So therefore, you can play around with the figure, the shadow. I think that's a bit much, that one. I think I'll take that off. There you go. How's that going? And of course, if you find your paints too dark, then you can just add more water to it, to the water in your paint box tray, whatever it is. A bit more here, give it slightly more. Oh dear, need a bit more paint here. What's nice about these pans, as they say, rather than tubes, is that it's very immediate. You can just grab what you want straight away. When you've got tubes, obviously you have to squeeze out the tubes into a tray and then take the tray out, the paint from that sort of tray, as it were, which is more sort of a bit more laborious. I think people who make very big watercolors tend to use that, because otherwise they'd use a lot of, they'd use a pan every time they make a painting. It probably works out slightly cheaper, I suppose. Now I want to do something about this shadow. Now the shadow here, I'm always a bit of a sucker for what I'm looking at, and what I can see, the cast shadow of my bear is actually purple. Well, it's sort of violetish, so I want to do the same. So I'm going to put a bit of red into my blue to create a bit of a purple, and I'm going to try and emulate that color. So, I mean, it's not going to be very purple, but you'll notice if you put wet paint into paint that's wet already, you won't make it any darker, because the paint, well, you could actually make it lighter because you're just grabbing the paint that's already there. So when you want to make colors darker, there's no point in putting wet in wet. Basically, you've got to wait till it dries, and that will give you more of a, I think I just do that side, because actually just enough to go over that pore, to bring that pore out a bit, and maybe just to bring the shape of that head out a bit, like that. Is that it? Yeah, I mean, I could go on, I suppose, but in the end, I'm not sure how much better it would be. Sometimes it's nice just to do some sketches of things, and it takes off the pressure, because you're not looking to create a masterpiece. And often the nicest paintings are often sketches anyway. Like if you look at sketchbooks by, I don't know, Turner or whoever, they're just beautiful. They're so much nicer than the paintings they did, I think, because you just get more of this intimate feeling of the place, and it's kind of personal. You feel sort of personal connection somehow. And I love looking at those little sketches. Okay. Well, I think I've kind of done it. I mean, I don't think I could just play around with a bit more line. If you're going to sort of go back in and draw a bit, see what it does. Probably nothing great, but no, I think that's it. Okay, well, this was a demo of something that you can do at home, and something that we're going to do in a couple of weeks with the Cardiff Met University, and we'll set a time and forewarn you so that you can join me and we can paint a toy together. So you can get the whole family around, because this is suitable for kids and adults, and I definitely won't swear. And I'll just have to see if I'll talk at the same time. I've still got to work out if this is going to be interactive at all, how I'm going to interact with you if I'm talking. So I'll have to see. Maybe the first one I'll just do the same as we are now, but give you obviously advance warning, and get your material ready. Okay, well, thank you very much for accompanying me on the painting of the bear. There you go, you can have them together there. Voila.